Did you know that Warner Brothers systematically engineered its femme fatales? Only 15% of Warner Brothers' female stars were allowed to keep their birth names, with most receiving complete identity makeovers as part of the studio's character engineering process. Lauren Bacall, born Betty Jane Pierce, underwent one of the most dramatic and successful transformations in the studio's history. The average Warner Brothers femme fatale character required 27 costume fittings, 14 different makeup tests, and 9 separate voice coaching sessions before cameras ever rolled. The studio's systematic approach turned to the creation of dangerous women into a science, one that generated millions at the box office. Behind Hollywood's most memorable dangerous women was a meticulous production machine. Director Howard Hawks personally supervised Bacall's metamorphosis, recognizing raw potential in the 19-year-old and methodically reshaping everything from her posture to her distinctive voice. Recently uncovered studio documents reveal that these transformations weren't artistic accidents, but calculated industrial processes designed to manufacture screen personas that would captivate audiences. In the crowded landscape of 1940s Hollywood, Warner Brothers carved out a unique identity as the studio that specialized in gritty crime dramas and film noir. This specialization wasn't just artistic. It was strategic positioning that set them apart from MGM's glossy musicals and Paramount's sophisticated comedies. But to perfect these darker films, Warner Brothers needed a specific type of female character, the femme fatale. The exposed papers have revealed something remarkable about Warner Brothers' approach to creating these dangerous women. The studio didn't simply cast actresses and hope for the best. They developed a precise formula for manufacturing femme fatales, treating the process like an assembly line in a factory. Internal memos show executive discussing the femme fatale production pipeline with the same methodical approach they might use when discussing actual film production. This industrial approach began with casting. Rather than pursuing established Hollywood stars, Warner Brothers deliberately sought out stage actresses and models they could completely transform. The strategy was specific. These women arrived with fundamental acting skills but without established screen personas that might conflict with the studio's vision. They were, in essence, raw material that could be molded into the exact archetype Warner Brothers desired. Executive meeting notes from the period reveal how scientific this approach truly was. During closed-door sessions, studio leaders identified the specific traits that made a successful femme fatale. These weren't vague concepts but precisely defined elements. The exact vocal register that projected both sophistication and menace, the posture that communicated power while maintaining allure, the distinctive gaze that could shift from vulnerability to calculation, and the costume elements that would instantly signal danger to audiences. Behind these creative decisions were cold financial calculations. Studio accounting records now show that films featuring these carefully crafted femme fatales consistently outperformed other genres in the Warner Brothers catalog. One internal report noted that noir films with prominent femme fatale characters generated 23% higher returns than crime pictures without them. This commercial success reinforced the studio's commitment to perfecting their femme fatale formula. Perhaps most revealing are the casting director notes from this period. These documents explicitly instructed talent scouts to find women who could project seemingly contradictory qualities. Find actresses capable of portraying vulnerability that masks danger, the appearance of the lamb with the cunning of the wolf. Women whose eyes can communicate conflicting emotions simultaneously, desire mixed with calculation, affection laced with deception. These instructions demonstrate a sophisticated understanding of the psychological complexity required for these roles. The studio's approach wasn't merely about finding the right face, it was about engineering a complete screen persona. Every element was deliberate, from costume design to vocal coaching. But who was the prototype? The first Warner Brothers actress whose performance would establish the template that all others would follow? While many remember later icons like Lauren Bacall, the blueprint was actually established earlier by a performer whose work would define the essential qualities of the Warner Brothers femme fatale. Mary Astor's performance in the Maltese Falcon established the conventions that would become the standard practice for Warner Brothers femme fatales. Her character's introduction is masterful. She appears first as a seemingly vulnerable damsel in distress, only to reveal layers of calculation and deception as the story unfolds. Astor's performance techniques became the standard against which future femme fatales would be measured, the precise modulation between appearing helpless and revealing calculation. The ability to make dangerous intelligence seem alluring rather than threatening. and the skill to make audiences question whether her vulnerability was genuine or merely a weapon in her arsenal. Examining Astor's performance reveals the template that Warner Brothers would refine over the following decade. Her costume evolution throughout the film, from conservative clothing that suggests respectability to more revealing attire as her true nature emerged, became a visual language that Warner Brothers would deploy repeatedly. Even her dialogue pattern, with its mixture of direct statements and suggestive implications, established the verbal strategy for future femme fatales. If Mary Astor represented the prototype, then Lauren Bacall was the perfected model, manufactured through a transformation so comprehensive that virtually nothing of her original identity remained. The voice that captivated audiences was engineered from scratch. The seductive gaze that defined her persona originated as a practical solution to conceal stage fright. Behind the icon stood a teenage girl systematically reconstructed into one of cinema's most enduring femme fatales. When Hawks first encountered the young model, he saw raw potential that required extensive refinement. His vision demanded more than minor adjustments. It required a complete reinvention of Betty Jane Pierce. Hawks developed an extraordinary transformation strategy that touched every aspect of her identity. His plan began with the fundamentals, a new name that sounded simultaneously sophisticated and provocative, a modified hair color that photographed with dramatic contrast, and a carefully curated fashion aesthetic that would establish her visual signature. Most remarkable was Hawks' approach to Bacall's voice.
Maybe I wanted to hold your hand.
Oh, that can be arranged.
The naturally high-bridge timbre of the Brooklyn teenager bore no resemblance to the smoky, seductive tones that would later define her screen persona. Hawks instituted what can only be described as vocal boot camp. Hours of daily Shakespeare readings with strict instructions to maintain the lowest possible register. This grueling regimen permanently altered her natural speaking voice, creating the distinctive sultry quality that became her trademark. The transformation wasn't merely cosmetic. It fundamentally rewired her physical expression. Hawks' attention to detail extended to the precise instructions for how Bacall should carry herself on screen. His private direction notes revealed the alteration of even her smallest gestures. The famous Bacalline provides the perfect example of Hawks' ingenuity. When the inexperienced actress struggled with uncontrollable nervous trembling during the scenes, Hawks cleverly turned this liability into an asset. He instructed her to lower her chin toward her chest to stabilize herself, creating what appeared to be a confident, seductive posture. What audiences perceived as calculated allure was actually a clever workaround for performance anxiety. Costume designer Milo Anderson collaborated closely with Hawks to engineer Bacall's silhouette according to specific psychological principles. His sketches show careful consideration of how each garment would affect audience perception. Anderson's design emphasized sharp angles and clean lines that simultaneously conveyed elegance and an underlying sense of danger. Visual cues that warned audiences that this woman was both irresistible and potentially threatening. Each outfit was constructed to enhance Bacall's newly crafted persona, reinforcing the studio's femme fatale template through visual language. The Warner Brothers publicity department executed a carefully orchestrated campaign to present Bacall as naturally sophisticated and dangerous. Their material strategically omitted her Brooklyn background, instead constructing a mystique around her that suggested an inherent worldliness and sophistication. The studio recognized that the illusion of Bacall's dangerous nature would be shattered if audiences knew she was essentially a normal teenage girl who had undergone extensive training. Behind every captivating femme fatale performance stood an invisible army of technical specialists implementing Warner Brothers' secret visual playbook. The power these dangerous women projected wasn't solely the result of acting talent. It was scientifically engineered through a sophisticated system of visual techniques that transformed ordinary actresses into predatory creatures before they uttered a single word. The cinematography department at Warner Brothers operated with military precision when capturing femme fatales on film. Their work wasn't left to artistic whim. It was codified in an actual manual that prescribed exact camera angles, lighting configurations, and entrance sequences specifically designed for these dangerous women. No other female character types received such specialized technical treatment, underscoring how deliberately the studio crafted their most profitable character archetype. The manual contained detailed instructions for what became the signature femme fatale introduction, the doorway entrance. This wasn't merely a dramatic choice, but a deliberate visual strategy. By framing these women in doorways or having them emerge through frosted glass, cinematographers created an immediate mystique, suggesting a character who exists between worlds. neither fully present nor absent. A woman who controlled her own revelation to the male protagonist. These visual sequences were meticulously choreographed to establish power dynamics from the very first frame. Lighting technicians followed equally strict protocols when illuminating these dangerous women. Studio documents reveal that Femme Fatales received lighting setups entirely distinct from those used for virtuous female characters, while the good girls received soft, flattering illumination that bathed their faces evenly. Femme Fatales were deliberately lit to create strategic shadows across their features. Light would catch one eye while leaving the other in darkness, visually enforcing their duplicitous nature. This chiaroscuro effect wasn't merely artistic. It was psychological warfare that directed at the audience, creating subconscious unease about a character's trustworthiness. Costume design for these women followed equally strict visual formulas. The silhouettes created for Warner Bros. Femme Fatales employed sharp shoulders that created almost masculine angularity, immediately settling them apart from the softer, rounded shapes used for conventional female characters. Their cinched waists emphasize an hourglass figure that simultaneously signaled femininity and physical power. Most distinctive was the strategic use of black and white contrast in their wardrobe, creating visual drama that commanded attention and established dominance within any frame they occupied. The makeup department played an equally crucial role in manufacturing the Femme Fatale's predatory appearance. While conventional female characters received makeup designed to soften and sweeten their features, the Femme Fatale underwent a transformation that emphasized her hunting nature. Eye makeup application follows specific patterns designed to create what one studio document called the gaze of calculated assessment. Eyebrows were shaped into sharp arches, suggesting skepticism, while eye line extended beyond the natural eye line to create a feline quality. These techniques weren't merely cosmetic, they fundamentally altered how these actresses were perceived, transforming them into visual predators. Production design documents disclose how sets were constructed specifically to frame Femme Fatales in ways that enhanced their threatening allure. While male characters typically dominated physical space in 1940s cinema, Warner Bros. Created environmental configurations that visually elevated their dangerous women. Furniture arrangements, doorway heights, and staircase placements were all calculated to position Femme Fatales above their male counterparts or to provide them with environmental advantages. Beyond the shadows and silhouettes lay perhaps the most potent weapon in the Femme Fatale arsenal, her voice.
I am Catwoman. Hear me roar.
While audiences rarely knew what was behind that every dangerous purr and seductive threat, stood Warner Bros.' specialized dialogue department.
Look at me. I hate the little beast. I wish it would die.
A team dedicated to engineering speech patterns that could disarm men as effectively as any loaded gun. The studio's approach to Femme Fatale dialogue wasn't left to chance. Archived notes reveal a sophisticated system for verbal danger. Writers didn't just craft lines, they built verbal traps.
Do you know, ever since we've been married, we've never been alone, not for a single day.
Dialogue construction specifically engineered to signal danger while maintaining appeal.
You'll be fixed for the rest of your life as Charlie Haskell. You can take your inheritance and go away. No more worrying about the rent, no sweating, scheming, wondering where your next meal's coming from. Think about that, Roberts.
The studio's dialogue department worked like linguistic architects, constructing speech patterns that balanced menace with magnetism in precise measures. Most fascinating were the physical techniques employed to create the signature Femme Fatale sound. Voice training records uncovered from the studio vault detail how actresses underwent rigorous breathing exercises designed explicitly for creating that characteristic vocal pattern. These weren't standard drama school techniques. They were proprietary methods developed specifically for Warner Bros. Dangerous Women. Actresses spent hours practicing diaphragmatic control that allowed them to deliver lines with a controlled, measured quality that suggested both confidence and hidden threat. You know how to whistle, don't you? This iconic line delivered by Lauren Bacall exemplifies the studio's formula for crafting memorable dialogue.
You know how to whistle, don't you, Steve? You just put your lips together and blow.
Previously unseen script drafts show how this line evolved through multiple rewrites, with each version refined to achieve that perfect balance between invitation and warning. What began as straightforward instruction in early drafts transformed through successive revisions into the suggestive multi-layered line that became a cultural touchstone. The drafts divulged the meticulous attention paid to even single lines, with margin notes debating word choice, rhythm, and potential double meanings. The linguistic patterns that emerged from this process were far from accidental. Studio writers developed a specific formula for Femme Fatale dialogue that mixed charm and menace in carefully calibrated doses. Their lines often began with disarming directness before pivoting to subtle threat, or rat menace in their language of affection. This verbal bait-and-switch became a Warner Brothers signature, allowing dangerous women to verbally ensnare their victims through language that promised intimacy while hinting at peril. Sound engineering played a crucial role as well. Technical notes from recording sessions revealed deliberate adjustments made to enhance the dangerous quality of these performances. Engineers would manipulate microphone placement and acoustic environments to ensure femme fatale voices resonated with that signature seductive yet threatening tone. They employed techniques to emphasize lower frequencies and add subtle reverberation that gave these voices an almost hypnotic quality. This technical manipulation created vocal presences that commanded attention and dominated scenes, even when the femme fatale was physically still. What makes these dialogue techniques particularly revolutionary was how deliberately they subverted traditional female speech patterns in the era. While most women in 1940 cinema spoke with bright, accommodating tones and deferential phrasing, Warner Brothers femme fatales employed declarative statements, controlled silence, and direct questions that put men on defensive footing. They spoke with a rhythmic cadence that was distinctly their own, neither matching male speech patterns nor conforming to feminine expectations. This verbal positioning created a form of power that existed outside conventional gender dynamics of the era. The studio recognized that this verbal subversion needed to remain within commercially acceptable boundaries. Production notes show that they carefully calibrated this balance, creating women who could verbally dominate men without triggering censorship concerns. They achieved this by wrapping potentially transgressive dialogue into the context of criminality or moral caution. What began as a corporate formula for box office success unexpectedly evolved into something far more significant. The Warner Brothers femme fatale archetype shocked post-war audiences by presenting smart, determined women pursuing goals beyond mere romance and marriage. This revolutionary portrayal has become a cultural touchstone that resonates through decades of cinema. Today's filmmakers and actresses openly acknowledge their debate to these pioneering characters. The femme fatale has transformed from a studio invention into a powerful lens through which contemporary storytellers explore female agency, power dynamics, and societal expectations. What makes these characters truly remarkable is how they transcended their manufactured origins to become authentic cultural icons whose influence extends far beyond the silver screen of Warner Brothers' golden age.